Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen, where the madness continues on my 370 GT DIY twin turbo build. This is part 2 of the mandrel bend exhaust system build. If you've seen part 1, you'd see we've got the exhaust system. Back to this point here, we're just about to come through underneath the differential, and I was waiting on planning out the rest of the components for up in the back area for the muffler area there. I'm working out exactly what I was going to do with it. We go down onto the ground here. You can see that I've actually got the whole rear system all planned out. It's a scale drawing. Everything is in measured locations. I've basically measured up the back of the vehicle and transferred all of the measurements and everything down onto these bits of cardboard that I've taped together, which has given me an accurate list as far as what bends I need to order and how big a muffler I can fit in and how it's all going to kind of work. I've made several sort of mock-up template drawings of it to work out what's going to suit me personally the best as far as what I want from the system, and this is what I've come up with. So this is my layout. I have all these angles all written down here, so I knew exactly what pieces to buy. I now have pipe, angles, mufflers, everything, so I'm about to start actually setting stuff up on the vehicle instead of on the drawing. So what I might do is just place a few components down over the top of the drawing just so you can sort of see how it's going to start to come together. So you can sort of see what's roughly is going to be going on there. You can see I've got a couple of large mufflers there that sort of form the whole basis of the system at the back. I've made up a couple of brackets and welded the two mufflers together with a little gap between them, just so I have a unit that I can mount up under the vehicle, that it's not going to be sort of flailing around while I'm trying to sort of do work on it. It should work quite well with the original exhaust hangers on the back of the vehicle, which is always something that you have to sort of consider. There are also height changes with the pipes. This just shows the sort of horizontal angles and bends and stuff, but there are height changes obviously with it, everything as it sort of comes up behind the rear differential, and the two mufflers I think I'm going to sit at different heights just to help with ground clearance. But as you can see, folks, this is the way I do things, as you've probably worked out from my previous videos. I always make mock-ups wherever I can, draw things out wherever I can. It just helps you so much as far as materials lists, and also being able to plan stuff out. Like if you start building something for real and all of a sudden something doesn't work, well, you've got to undo all that work and possibly waste materials. Whereas if you draw it all out, make a bit of a layout, then any problems that you'll encounter will become evident on your drawing or on your layout, and you're not going to be wasting time and materials on actually building the real thing, only to sort of back yourself into a corner that you would have seen if you'd had it all laid out. So just thought I'd show you guys the methodology behind how I do a lot of stuff, and also the reasoning. So I think the first thing I'll do is I'll mount this muffler up into the vehicle, so I can start fine-tuning all of these mandrel bends and looking at height change angles and things like that. So the muffler's temporarily mounted up under the vehicle now, folks. You can see it's just held in place with cam lock pull straps. So I'll take in and give you a bit of a look. Obviously you can also see I've got the outlet from one of the mufflers already done, that piece of pipe there. And you'll notice the exhaust tip is one of the factory exhaust tips that I did in a previous video, which I'll leave a link to up there, which shows how to reuse the factory exhaust tips and how to disassemble them and open them up to whatever size exhaust pipes you're running, just so you can keep those really sweet high quality factory tips. So let's go underneath and have a bit of a look. Sorry for the handheld camera work, folks. You can a bit glary outside. I'll just sort of try and get up high. You can see I've got one hanger on this side over here. This is just some 12mm stainless rod that I've got going into the factory hanger. The factory hangers are designed for 12mm. It sits really nice and tight in there. I've seen people use 10 before, because 10's a lot easier to bend than 12 is, but it flails around in the factory mount, and they're just crap. It's just not the way to do it. So you can see we've got spacers up under the muffler there, Go over to this other side. You can see I've just got this pipe here just tacked in position. It's just a short leg 90 going on there. And once again, you can see the spaces up there between the muffler and the factory heat shield, and you can see we're sitting directly underneath the factory heat shield. So far everything has stayed true to the layout on the floor, which I'll just go back and show you again now. So back to our floor layout, folks. You can see what we've done up under the vehicles is exactly the same as what we've got down here on the floor. You can see I've got my right hand side tailpipe already made up, and it's stayed true to the drawing on the floor. The only difference is the whole sort of 3D aspect of it, that this is a 2D drawing, but the exhaust system is obviously in 3D. So there's actually still quite a bit of detail missing from the drawing, like all the height changes. You know, for example, all of the bends in that plane. Obviously all of the bends in that plane we can do on our drawing. But unfortunately, these guys are the ones that you need to still have to do in position. So there's still quite a lot of tacking, and I use duct tape a lot to hold joints together when I'm cutting them and all that type of thing, just because you can pull it super tight and it holds extremely well. It can hold quite a lot of weight without stretching away from where you've got it sort of temporarily held in together. So yeah, all the pieces have worked pretty much exactly in line with our layout on the ground here. And I'll just sort of shoot you up top. I'll just give you a bit of a look while I throw this other piece here on. So as you saw, folks, this piece has been made up. It's ready to be tacked to the muffler. It'll be just mounted up in that position there. You can see it works. You know, it's in the perfect sort of position. I've got the tips in the factory position. I took a lot of photos and a lot of measurements before I pulled the stock exhaust system out, just to make sure I was going to be able to replicate it exactly. One thing I have noticed is the aftermarket exhaust tips generally come out a lot further, which to me looks a little bit silly. They really need to be in the factory position, and in my opinion it's definitely the spot where they should be. So what I'm going to do now, folks, is I'll tack this tailpipe in position, and that'll allow me to set up another exhaust hanger on this side, and then I'm getting fairly close to be able to release all these pull straps that are holding the whole system up. And once we get all this sort of tailpipe stuff sorted out and get the mufflers and everything securely held in position, we can then work back towards the resonators and everything that are already mounted up under the vehicle in that position there. So get this all fixed, and then we'll start working our way back on the bends that feed into the exhaust pipes under the car. Driver side tailpipe is now permanently tacked in position, folks. I'm just working on the hanger for it at the moment, folks. It goes onto that tailpipe. Now this is just some stainless 304 or 316 12mm rod that I had here in the Aussie shed. You can see it's been heated with the oxy there and just put in the vise and just bent over to 90 degrees. I'll take you under the car and just sort of show you where it's going and what's going to happen with it. So you can see, folks, this is our hanger up here. So it'll slide in the back of the hanger there, and once that's in, it'll then get welded to the side of this tailpipe here. I want to drop the hanger vertically, so there'll be a little bit of a bend on the bottom to bring it across to the tailpipe. And so it'll be cut off, have a bend and a bit of shaping work on the bottom, and the top will be all sort of smoothed off. Then once I've got it all sort of cut to length and everything, I'll run it on the wire wheel, and I'll get rid of all this oxidization on the bend from heating it up, and just clean it all back up again. That way it won't sort of rust where this oxidization is once it's in position. I'll just whip you over to the bench and just sort of show you how I did this. So this is the little oxy map setup that I run here in the Aussie shed, folks. Years ago I used to have a big oxyacetylene kit with all the cutting gear and all that sort of stuff, but I found I just wasn't using it very much, and at that stage in Australia we couldn't buy our own bottles and have a bottle exchange program. We had to rent bottles, and as you know, if you're an Australian, they used to just bend you over and just royally drive you for the rental of these bottles. And if you had bottles that were sitting around and you weren't using, it was just, you know, frightfully expensive to have them. I had oxyacetylene for years, got sick of paying for the bloody bottles, so I ended up just swapping over to this small setup here. Admittedly, it's quite expensive for the oxygen bottles. These are all just disposable bottles. The MAP bottles are fairly cheap, but the oxygen bottles, you go through a lot of them as you do with oxyacetylene. You know, you're much higher ratio of oxygen. But the fact that I'm not paying any rental on them and it just sits in the corner until I need it for a little job like this, you know, it makes it well and truly worthwhile. So this is all I did, folks. It just went into the vise here on the bench. Heat her up with a bloody oxy until it's red hot in that position there, and just basically grab the rod and bend it over to 90 degrees. And that's that one done and dusted. Very simple indeed to make this stuff up. So as I mentioned out the back there, I've got to do another little bend, cut it off to length, clean it all up on the wire wheel, and we'll tack weld this guy in position as well. So I'm just going to form that second bend here, folks. On the first piece I was able to just grab it by the top and just pull it down by hand. The heat wouldn't have travelled up far enough to be a bit of an issue, but on this one obviously I've got hardly any leverage against it, and it'll probably be quite hot at the top by the time I go to pull it down anyway. So I'll just do this one with a hammer. There we go. Maybe a little bit more. Sorry folks, it's just a little bit awkward with the tripod and the camera and everything here to get around this to get a bit of heat into it evenly. I'll come around here where you can see me. Might do me. We'll let that cool and we'll go and check it on the tailpipe. Yep, that's not too bad, folks. By the time I grind a bit off here, I always grind a bit of a flat where I'm going to weld it, just so you're not sort of trying to weld on the tip of the round. That'll sort of move it in and give me a lot more area to weld on. But that's not too bad at all. So I'll go at it with a grinder, and then I think I'll clean it all up and give you a look before I weld it, or I might even tack it on. I'll see how I go. And that's our finished hanger there, folks. Now we've just got to fit it up and throw a few tacks on it. There it is, folks. She's tacked. So from here I think I might just do a little bit more on this sort of transition down into the rest of the exhaust system. And the same on this side. There's a bit of a bend that's got to sort of flip back in behind, sort of in this spot here. So I might set a bit of that up and you know, just have a bit of a fiddle. So a little bit more progress, folks. I've got this pipe from the rear muffler here done to go onto there. All it needs is just welding now in position. Bit of a tack here, bit of a tack there, then I can take this whole thing off and sort of weld it. So that's looking pretty sweet. And then all I've got to do is this remaining piece across there, that last little piece like I've done there. But as you can see, this piece here is only very kind of temporary. It's held in with a clamp and a spacer across to this tailpipe here. We've got a duct tape joint up here, and this piece here isn't finished. So what I'll do is I'll get this piece sorted out and then make sure that it's okay, and then we'll just sort of start doing a few tacks, and it shouldn't be too long before it's up to the same stage as the one on that side is. Alright folks, we're nearly there. I'm about to take the whole muffler arrangement off at the V-bands just past the diff. We've got a weld around the two V-bands. We've got the ends of those same pipes just tacked onto the muffler either end. We've got to weld those. We've got one tailpipe to fully weld up. We've got one hanger to fully weld that's just tacked. And we've got one more hanger to put in. So I'm just about to strip all this back off, take this rear unit as one piece over to the bench and do those final welds, and then back up she goes. And it should be pretty good. There's just one hanger that I might put in on the back here from the original muffler. There's another hanger point. It's not really necessary, but I'll see. I'll see what it looks like once all the straps are off and it's just sitting on the hangers. So that's what I'm doing, folks. I'll be over at the bench shortly. So there you go, folks. This is our rear exhaust module. I guess you'd call it a module. I don't know. It's out of the car anyway. So that's our mufflers and tailpipes. You can see all the hangers are on. I ended up putting another little hanger on the back. It'll actually keep it stable, I figured, if you remove the center section of pipe without this kind of falling down at the back. You can see it's got the V-band flanges on there. So I'll just pull the camera off the tripod and give you a little bit of a walk around, and I'll show you what we've still got to do on it. So as I mentioned before, folks, we've still got this joint here. Needs to be welded. This one here's got to be welded. They're tacked as they stand at the moment. This hanger's only tacked on. Around this side, this hanger's tacked on. They're all done. This joint's got to be welded, and the V-bands have got to be finished welded. They're just currently tacked in position. But you can see this sort of rear exhaust module that I've made in all its glory. With all the flash mandrel bends, you can see our original rebuilt tips on there if you've seen the other video. It's all looking pretty flash. So I'll get to finishing off these last few joints and we'll throw it back on the car. And there it is, folks. All finished welded, ready to go back onto the car. I think I might just have a little bit of a walk around just to kind of show you guys exactly how it sort of looks. You can see the shape is fairly representative of our original layout. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the whole 3D aspect of it, the height changes and whatnot, are what makes it different to our drawing. But other than that, it's pretty good. Actually, folks, I might just set it up again over the top of the original drawing just so I can show you how close it is to the original design and everything. So that's the layout there, folks. I might just pop the muffler tailpipe unit on and see how she looks. So there it is, folks. You can see that it accurately fits over the top of our original drawing. So even back when I drew this out, you can see that it was a reasonable layout to work from. The only substantial change has been this pipe here, which just tucks in slightly more. On the drawing it comes straight and then turns. I turned it right from here to bring it across in line. So there's a little bit of, we've gone outside of the outline there, but other than that, it's all directly over the top of the outlines. So hopefully that just demonstrates how handy it is to do your layouts, do your mock-ups and all that sort of stuff first. It can really help you as far as clarifying potential issues and also help you with material lists when you're ordering stuff. So, time to throw it back up on the car. And there it is, folks. She's all mounted up in a permanent position. It won't be coming back off again. She's there for good. Quite happy with how that all sort of turned out. So while we're up here, we might just do a bit of a quick walk around just so you can sort of fully get the sort of gist of it all. It's quite sort of symmetrical in how it's kind of laid out and everything. You can see our factory hangers have all been employed. The mufflers are mounted directly underneath the factory heat shield. I did end up using this hanger mount on the rear, mainly because I figured if I undo the V-bands at the back and pull the center section of the exhaust out at any time, having that hanger on there will stop this unit from sort of tilting down at the back and flipping down. It'll just hold it really well in position. And you know, while I was doing it, it's no drama to make up one extra hanger mount, even though while it's all located in position, it doesn't particularly need it due to the fact that we've got, you know, a hanger there and then a hanger in this position here on both sides, which is well and truly enough to sort of support it. But Yeah, folks, you get the idea. All turned out quite nice. So I might just throw myself on my back under the car and give you a bit of a look at the whole system from underneath. So there we are, folks. This is what it looks like directly up from underneath the car. That's the very back there. Shows how sort of even and consistent everything is. The factory tip locations are all perfect, and you know, it's all looking pretty good. See how it sort of snakes down. Being that the whole exhaust has been assembled with V-bands, I think was the way to go. It just means there's no gaskets, and it just makes assembly and disassembly really, really simple, and it makes the sort of changing of components and stuff a little bit easier if you have to take sections out to work on things. There's no gaskets to replace or anything like that. So we've got our back section that we've just done, V-bands, then we go into the middle section which houses the 8-inch resonators, and then we have our next V-band join, which then takes us into the 3-inch part of the system. We go from those V-bands straight into the X-pipe, and then down into the flex joints, catalytic converters, and then up into the engine bay. So that's pretty much it, folks. That's the exhaust system finished, and now ready to move on to some other things. So I hope you like the DIY mandrel bend exhaust system build on the Nissan 370 GT. I feel it turned out pretty well. I'm quite happy with it all, and it just shows you that you're able to turn out pretty decent sort of stuff in your workshop at home. If you set your mind to do something, folks, anything's possible. So that's it for the exhaust stuff now, folks, and we're now ready to move on to some other stuff. So as always, folks, thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. Bloody pleasure to have you here. Great having a bit of company while I'm working. And remember, folks, if you like my content, remember to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.